Hi everyone, welcome to today's Makerspace video. The topic today is how to make a sock monster, and it's a bit of an upcycling recycling challenge. What I'm going to do is have a go at making a soft toy using recycled or repurposed textiles. So this is what I've ended up with. So I'm aiming for a cute but ugly aesthetic. I think it's fairly reasonable for a first attempt. It's made from a couple of old socks and a glove. So here are the materials that you'll need. I started with 3 old socks and an orphaned glove. So these are all old items that have been washed and dried properly. I have some polyester filling. This is actually new because I didn't have any that I could repurpose. But you can find polyester filling, for example, in an old cushion insert that would be suitable for repurposing. But just make sure that it's well cleaned and dried. I also have 2 chenille stems. They otherwise known as pipe cleaners. They have a soft wire inside. I'm going to try and use these in the arms to hopefully help me give them some shape and structure. Maybe I can put them into poses. We'll see how we go. I also have 2 buttons for eyes. And then I have some tools that I used. I have dressmaking pins, needle and thread. By all means, if you have a sewing machine, that would be absolutely perfect, but there's not a lot of sewing involved, so hand sewing will be fine. Dressmaking scissors, seam ripper, and I also have a chopstick because that helps me hopefully to put the filling into the long and skinny arms and legs. And just to show you as well, just to give you more inspiration, this is what I actually used, but I also will show you what I didn't use, just to give you some suggestions. Here's some materials that I also had that I never didn't actually end up using. So just give you some idea of what other old textiles that you might be worth collecting or gathering up, just to give you a bit more inspiration. Basically, when clothing or textiles have holes or are stained, they're very hard to recycle because you can't donate them. So they all make very good raw materials for your next craft project. So I've got a couple of other different coloured extra socks, some fabric scraps, and an old t-shirt. Thought they might be useful, didn't use them. I also had some fabric markers, and if you don't have fabric markers, coloured permanent markers will also work quite well. Step 1 is to fill the glove with the polyester filling. Start with the finger sections and then fill in the palm. I'll miss the thumb because that's where I'm going to make the mouth. I'm going to fill it quite puffy but still soft. Once the glove is filled, I'm going to use pins to help me position the eyes. Now, normally the button looks like this, but I've discovered that when you flip it over, it actually, I think I prefer the look of that. It looks a bit more like an eye, so I'm going to use it upside down like that. I'll use a pin to help me position it before I use dark thread to stitch them on. So that's 1. That's 2. And then to make the lips or mouth area, I need to invert this empty thumb section. So open it out and use your finger to push it in. And then you can push it in as deeply as you like, because you can make it into more like a fish mouth shape, if you like. And then I'm going to make a smiley mouth, so I'm pinching it into a sort of a fat line, and I will put some stitches at the bottom of it to secure the shape and hopefully help me shape it into a curved smile. I've used some running stitches to sew the mouth closed into lips, and I'm putting a few stitches in the corners to hopefully anchor the smile, and then one at the bottom in the middle to maybe anchor this down to make it smile a little bit more, and then in the corner here to make it go up. Once you've done that, we're ready to make the body. Here's the sock I'm using for the body of my toy. I'm going to open it out this way so that the heel is right in the middle. And what I'm going to do is cut basically a Y shape. So I'm going to cut it straight up the middle here, and then a little cut across as well. Cut maybe about a centimetre across. Make sure you cut all the way through both layers. And then turn it inside out so that it's ready for sewing. So where I've cut, this pink section is going to be the legs. And so sew them together along the length here. You can use running stitch or a blanket stitch. And then I'm going to sew this little cut front and bottom like that. And what it does is it creates a bit of a crotch, which means your legs will stay further apart and more leg-like. And then turn it inside out and we'll be ready to fill. This is what it looks like once the body and legs have been sewn together and filled. So you can see the leg seam. It's a little bit ragged, but there's the crotch, and you can see how that looks quite leg-like. So there's a little bit of joining together that needs to be done to join the leg part back onto the crotch. And it's actually made a bit of a bottom as well. The heel of the sock made a little bottom. Now, it doesn't really matter which order you fill the legs and the body. The body's like a roll of wadding, and the legs were filled separately to just make sure this bottom area is really got lots of fill so that the legs are nice and solid. To make the arms, I'm taking my other sock and using the toe section this time. Going to cut it off here just before the heel. I'm going to open it out the other way, and again cutting it through the middle. That will save me a seam because that's already closed. Turn it inside out to sew the side. Again, a running stitch or blanket stitch is good. And then, okay, once the leg section's been sewn along here, just running stitch, turn it over and it's ready to be filled. I've cut a piece of wadding and the chenille stem to the right length, and I'm going to roll it up a bit like a sushi roll and then stuff it into the leg. The chopstick will help me push this all the way down. when it's filled, it'll look like this. And you're ready to sew this to the body. So here's your arm. I'm going to tuck the raw edges in. I'm going to do a very simple sewing directly to the outside. Tuck the raw edges in, and I'm going to position it on my body and use some pins to work out the position. I'm going to simply sew it to the outside of the body. Another way of doing it is to make a little cut in the fabric of the body and poke the arm through before you sew. That will give you a more secure attachment if you want to try it. And my arm's not super fixable, but you can see the wire does give it a little bit of strength so that you can position the arm. So then you can start stitching all the way around and do the same for the other arm. Okay, so we have our filled body with arms attached, and we've got our filled head. So now we can put everything together. What I'm planning to do is wrap this sort of wrist area of the glove over this section of the fill, and then put the stripy fabric of the body over it, like this. And then you can attach this together either, again, with blanket stitch is probably the best one to use here. If you're not familiar with blanket stitch, I'll just quickly demonstrate. It's a hemming stitch, and it's practical as well as decorative. It's called blanket stitch because you often find it binding the edges of a woolen blanket. So what it looks like is you need to sort of wrap the thread above the top edge of your hem, of your raw edge. And if you're going for a quirky sort of look, then it doesn't matter if your stitches are not very even. It will add to character. But of course you can do it as finely and evenly as you can, or make it a bit of a visual feature with chunkier thread and higgledy-piggledy stitches. That's okay too. So it looks like that, and it will cover up your raw edge and make it nice and secure. And I've had second thoughts about the color scheme, so I'm going to decorate it with a little outfit. This is also made from socks. I cut it into a sort of fringe and then pulled it to give it a bit of a curl. I'm just going to give it this sparkly cape, and I'll just pin it for now. I might sew it on with a button or just a few stitches. That's it. That's my sock monster. There are lots of design inspirations on the internet for sock creatures or sock monsters. Of course, the classic design is a sock monkey, so there's a few ideas to start with, and I hope you find something that will work well with what materials you have and that you enjoy yourself. See you next time.